Hey everybody, welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. I hope you had a good weekend, and I hope you enjoyed the extra days off you had from school. We don't have many people right now, and we were, I guess, going to do this anyway. So why don't we go ahead and just continue with Over the Wire, because we're going to have at least a couple more, like maybe this and maybe the next class will be more Over the Wire. I'm not entirely sure how much more of this we're going to have. But, it'll be a good opportunity to cover more of this stuff because actually it gets a little bit more involved as we get further along in the levels. Yeah, I know. I got an email earlier today actually asking me if we were going to have classes today because there's a reminder email that got sent out saying that we were going to have one tonight, but then, yeah, the website says we don't. I double-checked with Mr. Dubik. We do, I should say. But I imagine we're probably going to have pretty low attendance. So, yeah, I figure, it's a perfect opportunity to spend some more time with the command line. I know you guys are so excited about that. Using some more putty. And basically just strengthening our hacking skills. Hack the planet. I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah. So, hope you all remember how to get into Over the Wire. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and send you guys the password for the level that we ended on because we already went over all that stuff. This will just save everybody a lot of time if we don't have to walk through the first 6 levels again. I don't think we actually got that far. Oh yeah, we were going to 7. You're right. Yep, I see what you're saying now. We were going to 7, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and get Putty open, and I'm going to use my saved session. I'm going to log in as Bandit6. Boop. And my password, right-click, enter, and we're here. So let's see, Bandit Over the Wire, Bandit6. Bandit 6 to 7. So the password for the next level is stored somewhere on the server and has all of the following properties. It's owned by user Bandit7. It's owned by group Bandit6. And it's 33 bytes in size. So this is where things get a little bit stranger. Because it talks a little bit about, well, it doesn't really talk, but it sort of illustrates whoa, that is freaking out. Sorry, unrelated to my computer. It illustrates the difference between users, owners, and groups. Basically, a user is anybody who uses a computer. Pretty straightforward. You guys already knew that. An owner refers to a specific single user. And an owner is any user who has, well, basically ownership properties over a file, and that can involve, read and write privileges. It can involve, deleting. If it's like a directory, they can delete and add and create stuff inside of that directory, including other directories. If it's like a file of some sort, they can delete the file. They can copy it, they can move it, things like that. And then there's also groups. Now, multiple users can belong to a group. So you can not necessarily be the explicit owner of something as it's shown in like ls-l, which we'll see in a minute. But you can be a part of the group that owns it. So that's a way you can get around having, because you can only have one owner. But you can be part of the owning group. So that's the way you can sidestep that single owner requirement. It's a little weird, but we'll take a look at Bandit 7 or 6, excuse me, and hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just type in ls and make sure that I don't time out. So we got nothing in here. ls-a, definitely nothing in here. We've got a couple of hidden files, bash logout, bash rc, and profile. We don't care about those. Those are just little scripts that keep track of, or basically handle, users coming in and out of Bandit 7 and stuff like that. And then you've got the single period and the double period. Actually, let me go ahead and link that into the chat again, because we got that far last time. But I imagine not everybody saved it, which is fine. Just putty.org. Or you can just Google search for putty. Just make sure they're T's and not D's. For sure. So, yes. Does anybody remember what the single period and the double period represents? It might be a little bit tricky to explain, but give it your best shot. Make sure you're only copying the. How are you pasting it into? Okay, so first of all, are you using putty or are you using like a Mac or a Linux SSH? Okay, how are you pasting it into the putty window? Okay, did you make sure to Control C it after you highlighted it? Okay, are you logging in as Bandit 6? All right, and finally, are you entirely sure that you only highlighted the password and not like the timestamp right above it? Yeah, double check that. If that doesn't work, try like manually putting it into a notepad file. Just like type it in manually or try and copy paste it in, and then copy paste it from there into the putty window. Oops. Let me know how that goes, by the way, if you're able to get in. Yeah, in the meantime, does anybody remember what the dots mean? What they represent? Like, let's do it this way. What does the single dot represent? Okay, so you might remember that the single dot represents the folder that you're currently in, no matter where you are, there's always going to be a shortcut to the folder that you're currently in. You might be like, that's not really useful, but it's surprisingly useful while you're typing. If you have to type everything out, especially if you think back to like the Bandit 2, which was, it was either Bandit 1. Bandit 1 was the one where the file name was just a dash, right? And so we needed to reference its location in order to be explicit about the fact that we were talking about a file, not just a random dash for option, like we've got here for ls-a. Remember, dash is a reserved character for any options that you want to append to something that you're doing. So we wanted to let it know that, no, we're not trying to utilize any options. We're not trying to do anything special with cat. We're actually trying to open a file called dash with cat. And so we used the period and then a / and then a dash in order to represent the fact that we were looking for a file with that name. We told it, hey, it's in this folder and it's called this. We could have also used double quotes, but that's a good way to show what that is. And then the double period represents one file level above. So if I were to go cd, which is change directory, and then 2 periods, and hit enter, now I'm in the home folder. Now let's see here. Well, ls, hey, look at that. Bandit 0, 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 2, 20, 21, and blah, blah, blah. So the thing is, there are a few different ways it can go, but it's copy paste the URL that you're trying to connect to into the question box, and then copy paste the password you're trying to use, and then copy paste the password you're trying to use. All just like bam, 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 3 questions. That's why it's bandit.labs.overthewire.org. That's fine. These things happen, you know. Okay, so we're in a bit of a tricky predicament here because there was nothing in our home folder, right? And there's a whole bunch of stuff in the level above it. Like just an utterly absurd amount of stuff. Who wants to search through all of this stuff? Well, I mean, the computer can for us. So why don't we give it a try? Remember that find command we used last time around? Do you remember what the command is for it? Or the search function? I was trying to be all like, oh, I don't know, why don't you Google it? And then, no worries, William. We're on Bandit 6, and yeah, so log in as Bandit 6, and there is your password. For sure. Yeah, no, yep, I know the feeling. Especially because 8 and 10 just sort of update whenever they feel like it. You have a little bit of control over it, but less so in 10 than you do in 8, and even then there's sometimes it just goes, okay, we're updating now, and you're like, all right. But yes, so the command to find things in the terminal, in a Unix terminal, certainly, is just find. And it just spat out a whole bunch of information. Just like, listed literally everything that's in here. Well, not everything, but so many things. So many things. And notice also Just take a moment to notice some of the lines here. Drifter8.ch root, permission denied. I just typed the word find and then enter. Nothing else. So the permission denied is something I want to focus on here. Remember what I was saying about owners? When it says permission denied, what do you think we can infer from that? Yeah, we shouldn't stick our noses where they don't belong. That's definitely true. But also we can probably infer from that we're not the owners. You know, if we owned it, the computer would have no problem being like, yeah, here's everything inside of it. Take a look. Oh, look, you got a picture of a kitty. Like, you know, that's not happening. So we can infer that we're not the owners. So let's be a little bit more specific, though. So remember how there was that whole thing in Bandit 5 into Bandit 6, how we had to find a file that was 1,033 bytes in size. Similar thing here. We have to find a file that's 33 bytes in size. So let's try this. Let's try find minus size space 33C. So the size is an option. That's why there's the minus in front of it. And it's saying, hey, find files of this size. And we're entering in 33C, and C is just the character that represents bytes, because B was already used for blocks. Anyway, don't worry about it. So we're going to do find minus size 33C. We got a whole bunch of stuff. Still a whole bunch of stuff, because it's looking through everything. Yeah, Bandit 3 to in here, hidden, Bandit 0, readme, Bandit 25, Bandit 24, password, Bandit 21, previous pass, Bandit 2, spaces in this file name, Bandit 5 in here, Leviathan 0, backup, Bandit 14, password, Drifter 6, data, Bandit 16, password, Drifter 0, password, Leviathan 4, trash, Bandit 18, readme, Bandit 4, all of these, Drifter 8, CH root, permission denied, Bandit 1, Bandit 16, to Bandit, yeah, it's a lot of stuff. And I'll tell you right now, even though some of these aren't saying permission denied, if I were to, for instance, cat bandit 18 / readme, well, hold on. Boop. It would still give us permission denied. I can't read that file. It's not giving me permission to. So even though it's not necessarily explicitly listing it here that we don't have permission, the only reason it's popping up with permission denied here is because we don't actually have permission to look in those folders to see if there's anything in there that fulfills our requirements. See, we have permission to look inside of bandit 4 / in here, and it returns all of these files because they're all 33 bytes in size. But we don't necessarily have permission to look at those files. And let me show you something. So if we go ls - l, and we look at that bandit 18 file that I was talking about, that we didn't have permission for, look at this that pops up. We got a bunch of dashes, and there's like an RW and an R, and then we've got 1 and bandit 19 and bandit 18, and then 33 November 14, 2014, and then .bandit 18 / readme. So what exactly are we looking at here? Well, we're looking at what permissions the owners and the groups have, and the root. So read and write permission belong to the root, I believe, and then owners have read permission. The root is kind of what's known as like a super user. They exist above like admins and stuff like that. It's like, think of it like a super admin almost, you know, because admins can have like read and write permission and stuff like that on a lot of files, but root can have permission to do everything on the computer, including mess with system files. So you have to be very, very careful if you're ever using root in a Unix system, because you can really mess stuff up. You know, don't ever use root unless you are like explicitly sure you know what you're doing. But anyway, so anyway, that's read and write permissions and stuff like that. As you can see, since a lot of, well, not since you can see, but you can see a lot of these are dashes. And what that basically means is not a lot of people have permissions to really do anything. You know, if this were like an open file for everybody to access, you'd have a whole bunch of like RW and X and stuff like that in these dashes. But as it stands, because there aren't a whole lot, we can sort of infer that not a lot of people have permission to do anything with this file. Then we got 1, which is the block size. Then we got bandit 19 and bandit 18. These are the ones I want to look at. Bandit 19 and bandit 18 represent the owner and the owner group, respectively, the owning group. So I might have that backwards, but I don't think I have that backwards. Anyway, bandit 19 is the group, whereas bandit 18 is the owner. Right? Backwards. Bandit 19 is the owner, whereas bandit 18 is the group. So anybody who is bandit 19 or belongs to the group of bandit 18 will have read permission. They'll be able to look at the file. We don't have read permission. We don't have the ability to look at that file and what's inside of it, because we are neither bandit 19 nor a member of the bandit 18 group. And a group is just simply like a collection of users that's created by like root or somebody who has permission to create those sorts of things. Don't like worry about it. It's like, well, what's a group exactly? A group is just, it's just a name for a bunch of users that have the ability to do something with the file or be considered owners. That's all that means. So yeah, bandit 19 and bandit 18 are the owner and the group respectively. Then we got 33, which is the size in bytes, which we already know because we searched for things that were 33 bytes in size. And then November 14th, 2014, that was when this file was created. It was created on November 14th, 2014. And then the path, bandit 18 readme. So, okay, we need to narrow our search some more. Even though we're returning things that are 33 bytes in size, we're getting results that we don't have permission for. We might have permission to look in that folder and see whether or not it exists and see whether or not it fulfills our requirements, but we don't have permission to actually read the file, which means that's probably not going to be our password either. They're not going to get you stuck in a situation where you're not going to be able to, you know, actually get your password without some wizardry. But anyway, so we need to know that it's owned by user bandit17. So what now? Well, let's go to check the man page for find, the man page, just short for manual. And let's go through some of these options. Look at all these options here, but we can just sort of skim it, trying to find something that's useful for us. Options, tests, what are we looking for? We're looking for, ooh, here we go, user underscore, or underline uname. File is owned by user, username, numeric user ID allowed. Hey, cool, all right, awesome, that's a good start. If I scroll up a little bit, I've also got, whoop, group gname. File belongs to group gname, numeric group ID allowed. I'm gonna hit Q to get out of there. Owned by user bandit7 and owned by group bandit16. So let's go ahead and do our search again, and let's append those to it. So minus size 33C. We're also going to do minus group space bandit6 because we're looking for things owned by the group bandit6, and then minus user bandit7 because we want to find things owned by the user bandit7, and we're going to hit enter. Whoops. And we're going to not accidentally hit 3. So this is a bit of a problem, right? Nothing. We have absolutely nothing. The only files that are returning results are only returning results because we can't look in them. But otherwise, we have no results. But that's okay. The password for the next level is stored somewhere on the server. Let's figure out where we are by printing our working directory with pwd. There's actually another level above this one, so let's go up one more level. cd ... enter. Let's print working directory again. We're on the lowest level in a Unix system. What do we have here? ls. readme.txt, behemoth, binaries, boot, dev, drifter, Eloy, etc. games, home, Krypton, library, library 32, library 64, library X32, lost and found, manual page, maze media, mount, Narnia, options, processes, root, run, SBIN, Semtex, server, system, temporary, user, like this kind of sort of looks like if we were to go to the like the local disk here and go to, well, this kind of actually looks like the roots, the C drive directory that exists in a Unix system. So let's repeat our search here. Now, keep in mind, we're just going to get a whole bunch of results because there's going to be a lot of permission denieds. There's a way to fix that, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Boop. Ton of results. So many permissions denied, though. However, if we look through here, notice all these permission denieds start with a find. So it makes it really easy to locate this one that is not permission denied. Look at that. We've got exactly one result. All right, ls-l on this file. Look at that. Owner is bandit 7. Owner group is bandit 6. It is 33 bytes in size. Let's cat this. And there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, our password for bandit 7. Yeah. Just because it's kind of a pain to actually get to that point. Boop. Enter. Now I'm going to teach you another trick. Remember how I showed you guys last time around the whole right-click and then duplicate session? Not exactly amazing, when you're running on like a Linux system or a Macintosh system, because you can't do the same thing that you can do in PuTTY. However, you can do this in a Linux system, in a Macintosh system. You can even do this in PuTTY, and it saves you a little bit of time. Here's what I'm going to do. SSH bandit 7 at localhost. Localhost means the computer you are currently connected to. That's all that means. Bandit 7 at localhost means we are logging into the computer we are currently logged into, except we're going to be logging in as bandit 7. So let me hit enter. The authenticity of host localhost 127.0.0.1 can't be established. Blah, blah, blah. This is basically, remember the first time we opened up Bandit Labs and it asked you whether or not you were, you wanted to accept a certificate, and you were like, yes. This is exactly the same thing that's happening here. So we're just going to type yes and hit enter. And we get the greeting that we got last time every time we connect to Bandit Labs over the wire. So I'm going to right-click our password in here, and hey, look at that. Now we're connected to Bandit 7 through the same exact window. We didn't have to create a duplicate session. We didn't have to create a new session and reconnect. We literally just typed SSH space bandit 7 at localhost. And now we're here. So let's see what bandit 7 is about. The password for the next level is stored in the file data.txt next to the word millionth. Okay. Well, there's data.txt. Let's go ahead and cat this, because, all we have to do is just read the password next to the word millionth, right? That doesn't seem too bad. All right, so cat data.txt. Let's take a look for it. Oh, I see the problem here. That's an issue. You might have noticed that my screen looked blurry for a second through your computer. That was just, a buffering issue. But let me scroll back up. I can't anymore. This is actually overloaded. This is more than 2,000 lines right here, because I know that my buffer is 2,000 lines. At least 200. I might be off by a power of 10. But anyway, there are a ton of lines in this. So let's actually file data.txt. UTF Unicode text ls minus l data.txt. Woo, look at that size. That is a 4 megabyte text file. That's a really, really big text file. Really big. Considering traditionally, our password text files have been about 33 bytes in size. This is almost 1 million times that size. So now we're at an impasse. Because that could mean that there's roughly 500,000 entries in here. Maybe, who knows? Could be 750,000. Could be a full million. That's a lot. So now we need to find some way to find what we're looking for. And I'll tell you about another command called Grep. Let's look at the manual page for Grep. Grep searches the named input file, or standard input if no files are named, for lines containing a match to the given pattern. And pattern is just a fancy name for the sequence of characters that you're looking for. This is just basically a Google for a file that you're in. Or like, you know, if you've used Word before and you've tried to do the Control F to find a word in your document, this is exactly what that is. You've got egrep, fgrep, and rgrep, but don't even worry about that. We're interested in grep. We want to use grep because grep helps us find a word in the file and gives us the result of that. And we want to find the word millionth. You run grep just like any other command on the command line by typing grep, and we're going to say millionth, and then data.txt. So grep space millionth space data.txt. And look at that, it returns one result. Millionth, in a nice red color letting us know that it found it. And then a thing that looks suspiciously like a password next to it. So there you go. Grep is simply a file search command to look inside of a file as opposed to the file search command that we've been using previous things, which is looking for a file. We've looked for a file. Here, we looked inside of a file. That makes sense? What I just did there? Raise your hand if you have any questions about how I did that. Cool. So it seems like that makes sense to everybody, yeah? All right. Well, let's go ahead and copy this password into the chat box. You go. Boop. And let's use our trick in order to get started on Bandit 8. SSH Bandit 8 at localhost. Enter. And you can do this as many times as you'd like. And we're just going to hit yes. And we're going to right-click the password in. And now we're in Bandit 8. Let's check out what Bandit 8's got. Bandit 8 to 9. The password for the next level is stored in the file data.txt and is the only line of text that occurs only once. So let's cat data.txt, and just like we feared, whole bunch of lines. fewer lines than we had before. Much fewer lines. However, who wants to go through all of this and find the exact same lines? That's just super annoying. Super annoying. You'd have to sit here and be like, okay, so lowercase f. Okay. Okay. So far, so good. I don't see any of them start with a lowercase f. All right. Oh, nope, there's one, lowercase f. All right, back down. Okay, uppercase f. All right, look for one with an uppercase f. Oh, there's one right there. Okay, capital M. Yeah, so you get the idea. No, let's not do that. Surely there's some terminal command you can use, I hear you saying right now. And you would be right. UNIQ, short for unique, data.txt. That didn't exactly work as expected, you might be saying. But if I were to, I'm having a hard time scrolling and finding the command for it. Okay, well, anyway, I think I found it for a second there. It doesn't really help that it's the same length. Okay, let's check the manual page for unique. So unique, filter adjacent matching lines from input, writing to output. With no option, matching lines are merged to the first occurrence. Mandatory arguments, the long options are mandatory for short options too. Don't worry about that. So report or omit repeated lines. So it sounds like we're on the right track, right? But it didn't exactly work like we expected. We still got a whole bunch of output. But this one seems kind of interesting. Only print unique lines. So let's go ahead and try that. Unique-u data.txt. Still a whole bunch of stuff. Still a whole bunch of stuff. Less stuff, but still a whole bunch of stuff. So let's check out, I think if we look at the manual for unique again, here's the rub. Adjacent matching lines. So we could have duplicate lines in here, but if they're not next to each other, they're not being thrown out. So that's a bit of a problem, right? We're at a bit of an impasse. This has to be sorted. We have to sort this. Some sort of sorting mechanism. Perhaps a sort. What do you think that command's going to be? Just sort it out in your brain and type it into the question box. Okay, maybe it was a little cheeky. It's the sort command. The sort command will alphabetize lines in a text file or some sort of input, in this case a text file, and then it will print it out. Yeah, I totally knew that. That was obvious from the beginning. So let's see here. Sort data.txt. Boop. And look at that. Oh, it's so beautifully sorted now. And we can see all of these duplicate lines. Look at all these duplicate lines. Look at all of them. So many duplicate lines. And they're all sorted. Wonderful, right? Absolutely beautiful. All right. So we've sorted it. Let's go ahead and unique data.txt. Uh-oh. That's not... It undid it. It undid it. No way around this, right? But again, well, your sort worked. Did your unique work after that? See, there you go. That's the rub. But I'll let you on a little secret. See, this kind of stuff, there are a few different ways to go about it. But like all we're doing right now is we're just printing stuff to output. Like literally, it's just being written to a buffer, which is then being printed to the screen and then promptly forgotten about. So as soon as we did the sort, it went, hey, let me sort all this stuff. Okay, and sorted everything. And then it went, okay, here you go, bing, and then put it out on the screen and then went, wait, what were we talking about? Completely forgot about it. Did not actually change the text file we were looking at all. That text file has remained completely untouched and pristine. All it's been doing is reading it and then figuring things out and then writing it to the screen. Imagine like you had a friend who had a very short memory and they had a piece of paper in front of them and they were like, okay, so give me everything in alphabetical order. And they're like, okay, and then they write it off to you in alphabetical order. They haven't actually written anything on the sheet of paper. They've just given to you what you've looked for. Now, here's the thing. We can be very specific about it. We can go, okay, so give it to me in alphabetical order, and then before you tell me that result, why don't you go ahead and get rid of any repeats? And they go, okay, sure, I can do that. And so they'll read it through in alphabetical order, and then they'll get rid of any repeats, and then they'll read you, presumably, the answer. But we need a way to do that in the terminal. Now, enter pipes. Pipes are so-called because they just they're meant to pipe information from one area to the other, but also because they just look like a vertical line. So look on your keyboard for the backslash, which should be right below the delete key, and you'll see that on that same key right above it, there's just a single vertical line. And that is the pipe. So obviously you're going to have to, hit shift and then that key in order to get it to print out, or in order to type that. But the pipe is very useful. With the pipe, nice. We'll see if you're right. With the pipe, you can actually string commands together in the terminal. So it's like, you can just take a bunch of commands and then you could stick a pipe in between them and it'll be passing that information between those commands in order to run them all together. So let's do this. Sort data.txt pipe unique -u. And let's see if you've got it right, Noah. So now we should be sorting it and then removing all duplicates. Hey, round of applause for Noah, everybody. He found the password without actually using the commands. Although there are much easier ways to do it. So anyway, what that did is that sorted it alphabetically, which was the thing we were interested in, because remember, unique only works on adjacent lines. It only looks at the lines directly above and below a particular line to tell whether or not it is being duplicated. If either one of those lines are identical, then that line is being duplicated, and then it is then thrown out of the result. So that's what we're dealing with here. So we now have our password for Bandit 9. Your eagle eyes. I will say, though, that's one of the fastest ways to kill one of your eagle eyes is to look through lines of lines of text on a terminal like this and try and find something. You want to talk about eye strain. Yeah, basically. But, you're fine. You're young. You'll recover. Your eyes will bounce back. Just treat them nicely. Use pipes. Well, no. You're not the Highlander. Let's not go out of control here. All right, so guess what we're going to do now? SSH bandit9 at localhost. And by the way, if you tried to open up an entirely new SSH session and you tried to connect to localhost, don't do that. You're connecting to yourself. What I'm doing here is I am already connected to another computer. And so the commands I'm giving to it, I'm treating it as if this computer were my own. Kind of confusing, right? But like, if you were able to type things on your computer and have them appear on my screen, like sometimes I do with you guys with the whole like take control of mouse and keyboard thing, I'm pretending that my computer is your computer. That's essentially what we're doing here. There's just a whole lot less lag because it's just text. But we're going to SSH into Bandit 9 at localhost because localhost for us right now is the computer we're connected to. So I'm going to hit yes, or I'm going to type yes, enter in the password, hit enter. Let's see what this one is. The password for the next level is stored in the file data.txt in one of the few human-readable strings beginning with several equals characters. What? What do they mean by that? It's cat data.txt. Oh, I'm pretty sure that doesn't look right. That looks like nonsense. I accidentally found the password already. But it just kind of popped out right there. Just ignore that that happens. Let's pretend that this was just, we couldn't see it. We got all this ridiculousness here. That's because this is a data file, literal data file. If we hit file, data.txt, dasta.txt, it is a data file. That is to say, it is not, strictly speaking, an ASCII file. There's going to be a whole bunch of binary that is in this file that the computer, since we used cat, is going to try to turn into characters. And that's where you get all this nonsense from. Because it's like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what all this is. Like, it's going to do its best, but it doesn't really work out all that well. It tries to translate. Like, imagine you had a secret code with you and your friends, and it was a terrible code. It wasn't much of a secret because it was only represented with the numbers 1 through 9. And the number 1 meant hello, the number 2 meant goodbye, the number 3 meant, you know, meet me at the park in the usual meeting spot, and the number 4 meant, I think your breath smells funny, and the number 5 meant, you know, at sundown, and the number 6 meant at sunrise, and the number 7 meant at noon, and so on up until 9. But you only have this code for 1 through 9. What if your friend sent you a code and had the number 12 in it? How would you interpret that? I mean, to the best of your ability, you're like, maybe it's a 1 and a 2. But then it just come out kind of looking like nonsense. Hello, goodbye, right in the middle of everything. That's essentially kind of sort of what's happening here. There's a table in which the computer translates numbers into letters for our eyeballs, binary numbers into letters and decimal numbers for our eyeballs, and characters and stuff like that. But some of these binary numbers fall outside of the normal range of characters, and so you just get this kind of like blah sort of nonsense going on there. So again, the password is just sticking out like a sore thumb right there because it's the only string, but let's pretend that's not the case. What I can do is I can use the strings command, and the strings command actually gives you all of the actual strings that exist inside of a file. Very useful if you have strings hidden inside a whole lot of data. So I can type strings data.txt, and I get all of my strings nice and organized for me. And actually, we can sort of scroll down here. We can see the password is, and then there's the password. So easy as pie. We're ready to move on to Bandit 10. Paste it in there. And boop. Man, I was really hoping we could get to Bandit 10. Well, once you start getting up to 14 and 15, things start to get really interesting. And then things start to get a little bit crazy from there on out, and it's pretty cool. But as it stands right now, let's go ahead and take a look at Bandit 10. The password for the next level is stored in the file data.txt. Are we sensing a trend here? Which contains base 64 encoded data. So real quick, SSH bandit 10 at localhost, yes, right-click to paste password, ls data.text. Let's cat it, data.text. Huh? I mean, it looks like a password, but it's way too long. Huh? Well, let's look back at this, which contains base 64 encoded data, file data.txt. Well, it's ASCII text. But what they've done here is they've taken this ASCII text and they've converted, again, those binary numbers that represent letters, and they've converted those binary numbers that represent letters into hexadecimal, which is basically a computery way of counting. It's from it's a base 16 system, so you actually count up to 15 before you roll over again. You know how in our base 10 system, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you go 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then 20, so on and so forth. Hexadecimal actually goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F, and then 10. And then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, 1F, and then 20. And the reason why that exists is because it's actually a very easy way to compress large numbers in binary down to much smaller forms that use fewer characters in order to be represented on the screen. So that's what's going on here. This is actually a hexadecimal representation. Or no, this is base 64. No, they converted the counting from normal binary to base 64. Excuse me, I had that backwards. But since we're running short on time, I'll just go ahead and tell you. You can just type base 64, a space, and then -D for decode, and then another space, and data.txt. And the output we get, the password is, and then you get the password. And there you go. And that's where we're gonna end it today, is at bandit 10 going into bandit 11. So let me go ahead and paste this in here. Whoops. Right. Boop. Bandit 11. There you go. I'm going to go ahead and paste it in here. Boop. So that you guys, if you're so inclined, you can poke around with this further and get further along and bandit. And I really, really encourage you guys to, because this stuff starts to get really interesting. You start learning about stuff like port scanning and you know, SSL RSA keys, which are like, you know, think of like a key to get into your house. It's like one of those, and you need one of those in order to be able to connect to another computer. So it's like a super secure way to connect to something. There's just there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff. Modifying files when you don't have permission. It's very, very interesting, and I encourage you guys to give it a try. But anyway, that's going to do it for today. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do the usual, and then we'll you know, if you don't have any questions or anything, we'll break for the next couple of days. We'll meet up again on Wednesday.